Ottimizzazione per i save data. Grande Gaccio Tabi. Mio padre, andiamo.
Hi there! In this video I want to share a beginner's guide with tips for building characters through chaos manifestations, CZN's roguelike game mode.
Ok, come buildare i personaggi, quindi come salvarti le build dei personaggi e cosa cercare nella Chaos Manifestation.
Familiar with key concepts like epiphanies or other combat mechanics, such as mental stress or action count, I strongly recommend watching my combat guide
Ok,
first.
sta dicendo guardatevi la combat guide se...
It will make it easier to follow along with the topics discussed here. For the sake of brevity, I'll avoid repeating information already covered there. With that
E lui fa guide per Grace Frontline 2, credo, che è il motivo per cui già sapevo chi era.
out of the way, let's get into it. First, if it wasn't obvious already, let's start with what you gain from doing
La devo avere per forza lei.
chaos missions, aside from the joy of getting to play your new favorite game. The main goal is to optimize your character's save data, which is a core aspect of a character's build. This is essentially a snapshot of the final state of a dungeon run,
Ok, questo è quello che a cui assomiglia un preset. Quando hai finito una run, ok.
including all of the character cards and upgrades, as well as 3 equipment slots.
Ok, durante le run trovi equipaggiamenti, gli upgrade delle carte che hai fatto durante la run.
A character comes with 8 cards in total, 4 of which are the starting point of your dungeon exploration, while 4 unique cards can be obtained during your battles via epiphanies.
Ok, hai 4 carte iniziali, che lo sapevamo, e 4 che ottieni grazie alle epifanie a scelta poi, mentre giochi. Ok.
Customization is achieved as 4 of the character specific cards can be upgraded into 5 different variations.
Ok, ogni singola delle 4 carte iniziali può essere upgradata in 5 versioni diverse. Sì, ho giocato alla beta che c'era.
Again via epiphanies, where you get to choose among 3 out of 5 possible options. Each character has a default save data file.
Quante carte puoi avere in totale il mazzo? Sono 8 di base, quindi 4 base più 4 epifani. E poi ci sono le extra carte che generi con le carte, immagino che non hanno un limite. Yeah. I save data li puoi usare fuori dalla modalità roguelike, che è tutto, questa è la build dei PG.
So that you can use them outside of the roguelike mode even before doing your first run.
Yeah.
These default files have all 8 base versions of the character cards unlocked, but no upgrades or equipment. Therefore, optimization means A. Acquiring all character cards and their desired upgrades, B. Removing unwanted cards, C. Adding valuable neutral and monster cards, and D. Obtaining gear with useful stats and effects. You may even repeat the process to build multiple save data files per character, if they are able to fill different roles or offer upgrades that solve different problems. Don't be discouraged if your first runs don't meet all of the criteria of an optimal build. The lower difficulty dungeons grant you less opportunities to gain epiphanies and gear, so you may not even manage to obtain all character cards on your first attempts.
Ok. Sta dicendo che ottimizzare una build potrebbe significare anche non solo aggiungere le epifani nel mazzo, ma anche aggiungere carte generiche che vengono dalla modalità roguelike o togliere carte del mazzo originale.
Alone the upgrades. When choosing your lineup for your dungeon exploration, there's a toggle at the top right that lets you activate Deep Trauma Mode.
Ok, quando stai per entrare puoi attivare la Deep Trauma Mode.
This is inaccessible if none of your characters have experienced a mental breakdown before, so it's only relevant for your second run and onwards.
Ok, questo è accessibile solo se i tuoi personaggi hanno già ricevuto un mental breakdown nelle run
When meeting this
precedenti.
requirement, you can activate the function. Deep Trauma comes with penalties, for instance stress accumulates faster, and you will have to play more cards if a character suffers a breakdown. There are also individual character effects that specify certain conditions under which stress is accumulated, though these aren't too impactful.
Ok.
In return, your chance to have epiphanies increases and your save data capacity is larger. Since the main goal is save data optimization, for which epiphanies are a major factor, you essentially always want this activated, unless your power level is too low to clear the dungeon.
Ok, la Deep Trauma Mode praticamente ti mette un po' di sfighe, tipo se vai, prendi trauma più velocemente, hai più sfighe, eccetera, eccetera. Ma la chance che succedano epifani aumenta, quindi il tuo deck building migliora, e la quantità di cose che puoi salvare in un preset aumenta. Quindi la vuoi sempre attiva.
On that note, building good save data for all 3 team members simultaneously is not feasible in the early game. Therefore, you should prioritize one character per run, which you want to optimize as much as possible while disregarding the others. Epiphany.
Ok. Lui dice tirare su 3, cercare 3 build perfette di tutto il team è praticamente impossibile, quindi sarebbe meglio concentrare tutti gli encounter e tutto quello che fai su un PG alla volta in modo che quella run l'hai fatta per la build di quel PG.
These occur randomly during battles, so you can't do anything about that, but you sometimes encounter events that grant epiphanies. Some may be randomly given to one team member, but others let you choose. Always choose the same character until you're done, which is the case after a total of at least 8 epiphanies. You can also obtain items or cards to trigger epiphanies, so outside of the early levels, you should be able to get at least one character fully decked out. Once you reach account level 30, a second stage in Chaos Manifestations unlocks, which should make building multiple characters easier, as more battles equates to more opportunities to obtain epiphanies and gear.
Ok, quindi praticamente di base hai diversi encounter e oggetti che ti sbloccano le epifani, che poi sono le extra carte che aggiunge al mazzo dei PG, no? Potenziate. Sono le versioni potenziate delle carte base che hai. A volte a PG random, ma quando la puoi selezionare scegli solo un PG alla volta. Poi dice dal 30 in poi che sblocchi la difficoltà dopo. Hai più battaglie e più opportunità di ottenere epifani e gear, ok?
Aside from getting epiphanies, you also want to remove or convert some or all of your 3 basic starter cards. These are generic deal damage, heal or shield cards, which are dead weight in your hand, especially when they don't fit a character's role. For some reason, damage dealers have heal or shield cards, and healers have attack cards, so at the very least you want to get rid of those. There are some
Ok,
exceptions.
dice spesso e volentieri anche liberarsi delle carte base proprio, cioè sempre il semplice fai danno, cura, shield che non hanno effetti aggiuntivi, è un modo di migliorare le build,
Just
no?
the rule though. For instance, Malin has a skill that draws her basic cards and reduces their cost to 0. In her case, you'd absolutely want to remove her shield card so that it doesn't get drawn by her skill, but you must retain her basic attack cards for the skill to
Ok,
work.
ovviamente non puoi cancellare tutte le carte base, ok? Certo.
You can remove or convert cards via events or in shops. Card conversion is a bit tricky, since the offered card should work for a character whose base card you want to get rid of. But card removal is straightforward. Just select the card you want to delete from the save data. Gear acquisition follows the same logic as with cards. During the early game, prioritize one character whose save data you're building up. You can obtain gear after winning a fight via events or in shops.
L'unica cosa che mi sono... L'unico dubbio che ho adesso è se un save data precedente lo puoi usare nella modalità roguelike per modificarlo. Penso di sì, cioè l'idea sia proprio quello. Tipo tu hai un save data che inizi e più run fai e più continui a ottimizzarlo, tipo. Puoi farlo, ok. Cioè non devi partire sempre da zero, no? Ok, ok, ok. Perché altrimenti come lo ottimizzi? Ok.
Recommendation, but it's best ignored. Even if you were trying to equip the whole team, it often was completely off, as it seems to disregard the gear effect. Here, the weapon is suggested for the support, because the others are defense scaling. However, all weapons have attack as a base stat, and this effect works perfectly well on Calip who has high cost cards. But as I was saying, just prioritize your main target first. You can also replace gear with newer ones if you found something better.
Ok, comunque il gear lo trovi mentre fai... No, ti crea un save nuovo, sì. Ok, comunque il gear, vabbè, sono pezzi che trovi, tutto il gear ti dà main stat attacco, ma anche se il PG non scala in attacco ti interessa l'effetto, ok? E li puoi
The best and most
rimpiazzare.
reliable source for cards and gear shops. When starting a dungeon, you should open up the map and search for resting areas with a merchant icon. A regular resting area is just a yellow campfire, whereas the ones with a merchant have a booth at the top right.
Ok.
You should choose a path that lets you visit as many of these as possible.
Puoi scegliere strade che ti fanno visitare più mercanti possibili, che sono questi iconsini qua del mercante.
There's always a guaranteed one
Perché,
before the final boss, but the rest of the
perché ti
map is
fanno scegliere
procedurally generated.
equipaggiamenti e
If there are
potenziamenti.
no merchants at all, you may even consider rerolling the dungeon.
Se non sono mercanti
Every
potresti
resting
addirittura
area offers a
ripartire
choice
da
between
zero.
healing 20% of the team's HP and recovering a bit of stress, or performing so-called training for 50 credits. By choosing one, the other option becomes unavailable.
Ok. Ti puoi
Training runs
curare
will
o
just mount
recuperare
3 neutral
trauma,
cards
ok.
from the general pool, which are class restricted. Here, the card on the left is grayed out because there's no striker on our lineup. You have to pay the credits up front before you get to see the options, so it's a bit of a gamble whether you get something worth your money. If you're low on credits, it may be better to just heal up. You can also temporarily leave the dungeon from these areas and resume at a later point.
Ok, comunque puoi spendere crediti per gamblare su un potenziamento random, ok? Tra tre che scegli, ok?
When there is a merchant, you can choose between cards and gear at varying rarities and prices. You can refresh the options multiple times at a small credit cost.
Ok, quando c'è un mercante puoi usare i
Most
crediti che sono comunque la currency che prendi nella modalità stessa e puoi rerollare per prendere gear e carte, che poi sono quelli che poi ti fanno la build, no?
You get to buy one card removal per merchant. Since most characters want to get rid of their 3 base cards, you would ideally want to pass at least 3 merchants when focusing on one character, assuming you don't encounter any events that provide card removal or conversion.
Wait.
Ideally want to one card removal per merchant.
Ah, i mercanti ti fanno rimuovere carte. A ogni mercante puoi distruggere una carta, quindi quando stai mirando a fare la build di un personaggio, solitamente te ne servono 3 perché vuoi togliere le carte base di quel PG.
Since most characters want to get rid of their 3 base cards, you would ideally want to pass at least 3 merchants when focusing on one character.
Ma quindi ogni PG ha le 4 carte più 4 carte di base per l'abilità base proprio,
Don't
ok?
encounter any events that provide card removal or conversion. Of course, you need enough credits when reaching the resting area, which you obtain through battles and sometimes events.
I crediti li prendi tramite eventi e battaglie. Ok?
Reaching a merchant without at least enough credits to buy the removal, which was priced at 80 credits during the playtest, would be a wasted node on your run. Sometimes, after defeating a stage
Ha 8 carte nel set base, di cui 4 sono base e le altre 4 del PG.
in Deep Trauma mode, this imposing opponent will make an appearance. You get the choice to play a zero-cost card called Fear, which allows you to flee the battle upon a successful dice roll.
Puoi fuggire dalle battaglie gamblando la fuga, ok.
However, I strongly advise against running from this fight, since defeating this enemy was the only way during the early game to obtain gear of the highest rarity.
Wait. Nemici aspetta. In Deep Trauma Mode c'è un avversario che appare ogni tanto.
You get the choice to play a zero-cost card called Fear, which allows you to flee the
Ma
battle
puoi
upon
anche
a successful dice
scappargli
roll.
se vuoi giocare la carta Fear, ok?
However, I strongly advise against running from this fight.
Ma è l'unico
since
modo di
defeating this
ottenere del
enemy
gear
was the
buono,
only way
però.
during the early game to obtain gear of the highest rarity. It has an annoying mechanic which forces you to alternate between your characters when playing cards.
Se l'ultima carta usata era dello stesso PG, lui ti attacca immediatamente. Ah, devi usare per forza... Ok, devi alternare carte tra PG, ok.
If you ignore this gimmick, that is by playing 2 cards from the same character
Se usi 2 carte
consecutively,
uguali dello
it will
stesso
make a
PG,
powerful attack, every time, including mental breakdown cards.
anche se lo fai con 2 mental breakdown di fila,
your
ok.
place, it's not that difficult though.
Vabbè,
If you
devi
only have
alternare le
cards of one
carte.
character in hand, you may even want to end your turn early. Ego skills are excluded from this restriction, so you are free to use those at any time.
Ok, le ego
I
skill non
received
sono
this beauty
incluse
of a
nel
weapon
calcolo,
from this
però.
fight, which grants unconditional weakness damage for all attacks, as well as bonus AP and card draws when breaking a target.
Quest'arma viene... Ogni attacco che fai è considerato weakness. E peschi una carta quando rompi lo scudo di un nemico? What the fuck?
This vastly outperforms any lower tier equipment. Since we're on the topic of enemy mechanics,
Non
let
adesso
me
lì.
make this quick detour to address another troublesome opponent. It puts a card called Shackles into your hand that increases the speed by which its action count advances. Once it attacks, your hand is completely blocked. If you can't defeat this enemy quickly, it's best to sacrifice the AP every round to get rid of the card. Otherwise, you'll get quickly locked out from playing your hand and have your run end prematurely. Since the optimization goal is hopefully clear by now, here are a few small tips before moving on. During battles, you should focus down targets that plan an attack.
Ok, comunque c'è un nemico che ti mette sta carta in mano che se non la usi ti riempie la mano e ti blocca praticamente.
Since your HP carries over between battles.
Devi stare
When
attento
you're
agli
close
HP
to
perché gli
ending a
HP
fight,
vanno...
it's
Te li
preferable to
porti
delay
però
for a
tutta la
turn
run
when
ovviamente.
the enemy uses abilities that don't deal damage. You can tell this from the icons underneath the action count.
Yeah, quello l'abbiamo visto,
When
no? Che
there's no
l'icona
or very
sotto
little predicted
indica che
damage to your
cosa sta
team's
per fare il
HP,
nemico.
you're safe for the round.
Quindi puoi passare il
Doing
turno
this
se vuoi
grants you another
approfittare
turn
per
to heal up
curarti,
and fish for
eccetera.
epiphanies. When looking at the options for an epiphany, it's easy to get lost in the effect descriptions. You can inspect the original card effect at any time by clicking on the button on the top right. I hope they make it easier to view the original side by side with its upgrades, but
Ok, vabbè, l'Epiphany hai sempre tre scelte quando succede, che abbiamo visto che succede a caso durante le battaglie.
assuming they keep it as
Puoi
is,
vedere l'originale lì, ok?
you can at least go back and forth. There are special epiphanies that add further value to one of your upgrade options. A special icon denotes the additional effect, make sure you don't miss this.
Yeah, ok, ci sono delle Epiphany speciali che da quello che ho capito sono quelle della deck, hanno quell'iconcina speciale, sono un bel po' più forti le divinità.
Don't sleep on neutral cards. In the beginning, it's easy to skim over these, but some of them are quite useful and fit into almost any deck. These are the ones you obtain from events and shops, though there are also some higher rarity ones that can drop randomly from monsters. They can even obtain their own upgrades via epiphanies.
Ah, ok, ci sono, ovviamente oltre alle carte specifiche del RPG ci sono anche le carte neutrali che prendi sempre dai mercanti o li droppi a fine battaglia, eccetera, eccetera. E anche le neutrali hanno le loro epifanie.
All of this just adds more variations to your decks and should be thought of as optional. Obtaining rare cards or special epiphanies is a happy coincidence and not something to actively target. Otherwise, I can see many people quickly burn themselves out. There's a lot of RNG involved in this process.
Ok, con le carte neutrali c'è un bel po' di RNG. Soprattutto per le epifani, ok?
And sometimes it's healthier to settle for good enough. In other words, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Finally, when you conclude a stage by beating the final boss, you get to duplicate one card in a character's deck. Often enough, the choices include one card per character, though unfortunately again randomized.
A ogni fine run puoi duplicare una carta nel deck.
I've also had runs where 2 cards were offered for one character.
Ah, ma non è detto che te lo faccia fare per il personaggio che ti interessa. Cioè, solitamente te lo fa fare per 3 PG, ma non è detto che siano 3 PG diversi, o magari è 2 volte per un PG e una volta per
So you
l'altro.
better pray that your main target is among the options.
Sono 3 carte random.
Note that neutral cards can also be among these choices.
Ah, lo puoi
so
fare
it's
una
best to
volta, ma
avoid
sono 3
adding too
carte
many cards
totalmente
to your
random,
decks,
ok?
and particularly not those that you wouldn't want to duplicate. For one character, so you better pray that your main target is among the options.
Sì, Games.
Note that neutral cards can also be among these choices, so
Le carte neutrali possono essere tra queste
it's
scelte.
best to avoid adding too many cards to your decks, and particularly not those that you wouldn't want to duplicate. On higher difficulty runs, you get more than one stage to fight, so you will also have more opportunities to duplicate cards. From the playtest, we've seen that from level 30 onwards you get to fight 2 stages, but who's to say there won't be even more in the late game. At the end of it all, a save data is generated for each team member. You can immediately delete them here if you know they are not worth keeping. The TB value for each save is only a rough estimate of its value though, you know better whether you had a good run for that character.
Ok, a fine run ti puoi salvare il save data o puoi eliminare direttamente quello che stai per salvare se sai che non hai mirato a quei PG. Il valore del save data è dato dal gioco e te ne puoi sbattere le balle in realtà perché...
When characters experience a mental breakdown, their save data may end up being corrupted. You can't delete these as you normally would, even if you know they are worthless. Instead, you have to go to the Appione Center, where you can either give counseling to repair the save data, or delete their memories for a low credit cost, thereby removing the save data.
Ah. Ok. Se sei andato in mental breakdown, non puoi usare né distruggere il save data, ma devi o salvare le memorie o scartarle nel loro centro. Tipo, ok, va bene. Vabbè, è la stessa cosa, ma devi pagare, ok, va bene.
Counseling takes you through multiple choices where you have to guess what male Korean gacha developers believe to be the way into a woman's heart or mind. Know that you
What? Counseling ti fa passare attraverso diverse scelte multiple dove devi indovinare.
Counseling takes you through multiple choices where you have to guess what male Korean gacha developers believe to be the way into a woman's heart or mind.
Ok, minchia, l'ha detto così seriamente che non avevo capito che era una cazzata, va bene. Vabbè, ok. Il counseling è letteralmente un rapporto extra con i PG, ok? Ok, va bene.
Know that you can only do 3 of these sessions per day, and the currency overlaps for some reason with the dating system. If you are out of tickets but wish to keep a save data, make sure to wait for daily reset and don't hit delete memories, otherwise it's gone forever.
Ok, comunque non devi farlo per forza lo stesso giorno, quello del salvare i dati lo puoi fare 3 volte al giorno.
From a character's profile, you can manage all available non-corrupted save data. You can delete them in bulk by setting a threshold TB value, set favorites, assign names and colors.
L'abbiamo visto, dal profilo del personaggio puoi cambiare le icone, le immagini, cancellare tutti i save data del PG preset.
Don't slack on this. Managing this properly will likely save a lot of time when you have multiple builds per character. With that, you should have a solid grasp of CZN's save data process. I was considering covering other systems like Arc City, but I think you'll figure this out on your own.
Ah, ti danno crediti se shardi roba, ok. Ok.
If you've played other gacha games before, most of the rest of CZN will feel familiar.
Se hai giocato ad altri gacha prima, maggior parte del resto di CZN sarà molto familiare, ok? Va bene.
Anyway. There's just one last tip I want to leave you with.
Un ultimo consiglio.
When starting out, you'll have access to the beginner banner or special rescue request.
Ci sarà il beginner banner classico.
Pulls, but comes with a 20% discount and you're guaranteed a 5-star character within 50 pulls. Even if you pull a 5-star early, you'll still get another one at the 50 pull pity, so make sure you commit to this banner until it's done. For rerollers, you'll want to aim for at least one additional 5-star from it. That brings me to the end of this video.
Ok.
I hope you found this guide helpful.
Puoi trovare... Cioè, il PT non si ferma se trovi un 5 stelle prima. Quindi a 50 trovi sempre un 5 stelle assicurato nel beginner, ma anche se ne trovi un altro prima. E quindi hanno detto, solo questo bando... Sì, ovvio, questo è il beginner, certo. E quindi hanno detto, per chi rerolla, l'obiettivo è cercare 2 5 stelle. Cioè,
and that you're excited to start building your first team. I think I've covered most of what's important in my pre-launch guides, though I would have liked to do an overview of the 4-star characters and potential teams. Unfortunately, kits are likely getting adjusted, so any guide I'd start working on now would probably be outdated.
Sta dicendo vorrebbe fare dei guide sui team, ma tanto bilanciano tutte e sarebbe inutile al cazzo, quindi ci vediamo dopo. Bella! Signor Tabi, un Chad, bel video, anche questo, come sempre strautile. Ci sta. Anche questo qua, ve lo linko qua. No, ha fatto 3 video che abbiamo guardato, sono stati una madonna, cioè letteralmente ha dato delle basi allucinanti su tutto. Però bravo, mi piace, bravo.